If you haven't read the book or seen the movie, Michael Lewis's Moneyball is basically about how the Oakland A's built up their team with almost no money simply by changing its strategy. Here's a clip.
Using stats the way we read them, we'll find value in players that nobody else can see. People are overlooked for a variety of biased reasons and perceived flaws. Age, appearance, personality. Bill James and mathematics cut straight through that. Billy, of the 20,000 notable players for us to consider, I believe that there is a championship team of 25 people that we could afford, because everyone else in baseball undervalues them. Like an island of misfit toys.
That same method helped the Red Sox go on to win their first World Series in 86 years. But as it turns out, the guy mentioned in that clip, Bill James, was not the first to explore how even experts can make judgments that turn out to be so wrong. Years ago, a pair of Israeli psychologists whose research on how and why human judgment is often so far off base won one of them a Nobel Prize in economics. And they are the subject of Michael Lewis's latest book. It's called The Undoing Project, A Friendship That Changed Our Minds. And Michael Lewis joins me now. Michael, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So how'd you find out about Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman?
It was a review of Moneyball, actually. Dick Thaler and Cass Sunstein, two academics, reviewed it and said, Michael Lewis has sort of shown that the market for baseball players is so inefficient that the Oakland A's can win and find cheap players. But he's not explained what's going on in the minds of scouts who are misjudging the people they're supposed to understand. And these guys did the research that showed like how the human mind makes judgments when it's uncertain.
And you hadn't heard of these guys before?
No, and which is mildly embarrassing because Kahneman had just won the Nobel Prize in economics, even though he's not an economist, even though he's a psychologist.
By the way, for the record, I had never heard of them either. So
Till now?
Till now.
You idiot.
Guilty as charged.
No, so I actually hadn't heard of them.
So since I'm a horribly thin-skinned person, if I read a review of something I'd done saying, you know, I can't believe Adam Riley didn't even know X, I wouldn't want to delve into X, and yet that's exactly what you did. Did it take you a while to make that shift?
Yes. It took me several years, and the accident was, there were two accidents. Danny Kahneman, the living member of this partnership, had a house up the hill from me in Berkeley, California, and Amos Tversky's eldest son happened to have been my student when I taught for a year at Berkeley.
That's incredible.
It was incredible.
And you found this out after?
After. And so it took, I started kind of saving strength for this in 2008. So it's been a long project.
Were you at all concerned about the marketability of this book? And maybe you don't need to be, given where you are in your career, but you've written about Wall Street, you've written about big-time football, you've written about professional baseball, and now you're writing about an incredibly intense partnership over the course of decades between two Israeli psychologists. Were you worried people might not want to read this?
No. You know, it's a spectacular love story. And
it really is.
It really is.
Such an intense relationship.
No, it's a passion. It's a tragic love story, and their ideas they generated in their 10 years of intense collaboration has touched every aspect of human activity: politics, law, medicine, sports. Moneyball is just like with a flick of the wrist, one of the things that you can connect to their ideas. So I knew how important they were. What I did worry about was my ability to get it across. I mean, some of the ideas are complicated, but
they are complicated.
But they make them simple, and I can help too.
And they've got this very, as you said, fascinating personal relationship. One of them, Amos Tversky, is sort of cocky and confident. You know,
he's
doesn't
a war
seem to
hero.
have any self-doubt.
Right.
Danny Kahneman seems to be depressive, plagued with self-doubt. And yet they end up almost being intellectual soulmates, right?
Yes. They saw something in the other that they wish they had in themselves. And the big thing about it is the backdrop is Israel from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And these guys, they aren't just professors in an office. They're on and off the battlefield every 6 years. I mean, these guys are serious war heroes. And what happens to them on the battlefield ends up informing their thoughts. So it isn't just like an ivory tower story. It's much more complicated than that.
You talked about the subtlety of their ideas, and they're probably too subtle to get into in the time that we have. But my big takeaway was that there had been this prevailing notion across the social sciences of humans as fundamentally rational actors, kind of the Homo economicus idea, and that they blew it up, essentially. Is that a fair, broad brush characterization?
And the big point is, I mean, everybody knows that people are crazy. It's not that people are irrational here and there. It's they showed the way people were systematically irrational. The mistakes people make when they're making judgments and decisions that are systematic. And so if people can make the same kind of mistake, markets can go wrong. Elections can go wrong.
And we have tendencies to make the same small set of mistakes again and again and again.
Again and again and again.
All right, because I'm an NBA fan, I got to ask you, you start out the book, or early in the book, you talk about Daryl Morey and going through some of his hits and misses as the guy running the Houston Rockets. What are the insights that Tversky and Kahneman provide that would help us understand why a keen basketball mind like Daryl Morey would miss on a player like Jeremy Lin?
Which he did. He didn't draft him. Well, in that case, what Kahneman and Tversky would say, they might not put it quite this way, is the brain actually thinks in stereotypes. And when people looked at Jeremy Lin when he was coming out of Harvard, they said not athletic. That's what they all said. And now the amazing thing is so he's not drafted.
Right.
After he kind of gets in the league and the metrics develop, the technology develops, they put sensors on him, he's got the fastest 2 steps anyone's ever measured.
I hadn't known that until I read that chapter.
No, that he is unbelievably athletic. And so why do they miss him? They miss him because, as Daryl Morey says, no one had ever seen an Asian kid 6'2" or 6'3" who's so athletic.
Like that.
So that you see what you see with the model in your mind. You don't see what's out there.
And final question for you, kind of a big one. We've got about a minute left. What are the insights that they might be able to offer us in why so many people who cover politics missed the rise of Donald Trump this election year?
You know, what they would say is elections, like markets, are inherently unpredictable. That there's lots of randomness, lots of uncertainty, and the experts are all there to make you feel like it's much more predictable than it is. So it's not that surprising people missed. They will miss. If you ask the experts on Wall Street to pick stocks, they'll be wrong a lot of the time.
Well, wouldn't there also be a point about where we're used to presidential candidates behaving, right? They just don't act like him. They don't talk like him. They don't say the things he did. Therefore, he can't be a successful one.
That's true, too. That's true, too. At the same time, it sure does help to be a tall white male when you're running for office. If you took his whole thing and put it inside Hillary's body, and you took her whole thing and put it inside Trump's body, there's no way that she would win. So they would have a lot to say about this election, and particularly about the way Trump almost instinctively preys on the very weaknesses that they identify in the human mind. I think they'd have a lot to say about that. But it's another book.
All right.
Yeah.
Michael Lewis, the book is The Undoing Project, A Friendship That Changed Our Minds. Really appreciate you coming in.
Thanks for having me.
The book, again, is The Undoing Project, A Friendship That Changed Our Minds.